Today we continue with verses summarizing the parameters of the 8 consciousnesses. And in the previous lectures, we already have covered the first 5 consciousnesses: the eye consciousness, the ear consciousness, the nose consciousness, the tongue consciousness, and the body consciousness, the 5. We already have covered the 5. And now we should be getting to the 6th consciousness. So the 6th consciousness in the Sanskrit language is called the Mano Vijnana. Mano Vijnana. The 6th consciousness, as I always give an analogy, is like the first 5 are like front-end salesmen in your body. They're the front-end salesmen that interact with the outside world. They're the interacting sensory organs that create the consciousness. The front-end salesman, the sales lady. And the Mano is the manager behind that interact with its own sales crew. And at the same time, it also interact with customers. But the Mano manager, the Mano, which is the 6th consciousness, is much more powerful and capable, because the Mano, the 6th consciousness, can always refer back to previous files. Doing budgets, refer to previous file, check all the customers, evaluate all the salesmen and sales lady. You know, he does everything, or he or she does everything. That's the 6th consciousness in you. The first 5, we already have dealt with them. How about the 6th consciousness, which the 6th consciousness, the Mano Vijnana, which is the most powerful? Now we study our own mind, your 6th consciousness. The word consciousness is just an aggregate of all the 7th. So we are studying individually your 6th consciousness. And how does the 6th consciousness arise? Does it arise at the same time with the salesman, with the seeing, the listening, you know, the tasting and all that? Or is it simultaneous or not simultaneous? Is independent of the 5 consciousness? How does it arise? We have to study how the relationship between the manager and the salesman, the sales lady. How come that once our eyes, our ears, our nose create all this consciousness, our mind, our mentality is at the same time working with it, or it works independently? Let's examine that. How does it arise? It arises under many situations, under 2 main situations. The first one is simultaneously with the first 5, 五具意识, or is independently of the first 5 consciousness, 不具意识. It does not arise at the same time. It can be all by itself. It's independent. Your 6th consciousness can arise at the same time with the first 5, or independent of the first 5. Do you realize that? Why do we have to study that? You want to study your own mind so that you are the master of your own mind and not the slave of your own mind. That's Buddhism. Buddhism is to understand life, understand yourself. So simultaneously with the first 5. So under the first situation, simultaneously with the first 5, you have 2 situations. The first situation is the 6 arises simultaneously with the first 5 consciousnesses reacting to the same object. The second one is reacting to a different object. With the same object, say if I look at you and I say, if I look at Janet, I say, oh, that's an image of a lady, and then at the same time, my Mano, my 6th consciousness, hey, that's Janet, that's my friend. He's coming to visit me today. So my 6th consciousness is interacting with the eyes consciousness at the same time reacting to the same object, and that object is Jeanette. All right? That's how it works. And the eyes itself cannot differentiate. That is, oh, that's not Mary, that's Jeanette. Or that's a man, that's a lady. I like her, I don't like her. The eyes don't judge that. The eyes only for the first few seconds do an image capturing only and make very initial observations. But then the details, getting back to the history of it, I like her, I dislike her, I discriminate her, I don't discriminate her, I do an internal comment on that person, that goes to the sixth consciousness. So that's reacting to the same object. Now sometimes your sixth consciousness arises simultaneously with the first five, reacting to a different object. For example, your eyes see smoke. Then the sixth consciousness thinks that that's a fire. Because the sixth consciousness thought there is no smoke without fire. So my eyes look at smoke, but my sixth consciousness does not look at smoke because it's thinking of fire. There must be a fire behind the smoke. So it's a different object. One object is the smoke, the other object is the fire. Create that fire image in the sixth consciousness. All right. So this is, we call inference. Not influence, but inference. Inference, postulation. Your mind, your sixth consciousness is always doing postulation, doing guessing based on assumed premises, guessing based on logical assumptions and logical analysis and all that. So it's a different object by inference. If the eyes see a string at night, the sixth consciousness thinks it's a ghost because the eyes see a string, but then your sixth consciousness see or postulate a ghost. So it's different, it's a different object, right? But then, of course, it's a string, it's not a ghost, so that is what we call fallacy. You misjudged it. It's not a ghost. It's not a ghost, it's a string. But then the first one is an inference because there's no smoke without fire. So the first one is more or less a true and accurate inference, whereas the second one, the inference is wrong because it's not a ghost, it's a string. So that becomes an inference into fallacy. Your fallaciously that's your fallacious reasoning. Is not a ghost, is a string. Why do we have to understand this? Why do we have to study this in Buddhism? Why did the Buddha want us to know this? The Buddha wants you to know that your mind makes wrong judgment. Sometimes you judge things wrong. Sometimes we get into trouble because we label, we stereotype, we discriminate. We do biased internal comments on many things. And you create your own mental afflictions because of that. All right. So there's two situations like that, right? Simultaneously with the first five consciousnesses. And then what's the situations when it is independent of the first five? The sixth consciousness later thinks about what the first five consciousnesses encountered before. In other words, your sixth consciousness start to remember what the first five, what the eyes see, what the ears listen, what the tongue tastes, later, not at the same time. So it's independent of the first five. And then also, sometimes the sixth consciousness all by itself arises without the first five consciousness interacting. What situation are these? That your own sixth consciousness creates images, creates comments, creates misjudgment, creates bias, or creates illusions, imaginations. There are three circumstances. One is when you are deep in meditation, then your first 5 consciousness do not work, because you're in deep objective, you're in deep samadhi, you're in deep meditation. Then that's in your 6th consciousness, because your 6th consciousness is in deep focus. The first 5 are not working anymore. The first 5 consciousnesses cannot influence you, because you're in deep concentration. You know why? All our senses now influence us, bring us the judgment. Sometimes they are the culprits helping us to do wrong things, because the eyes help us to misjudge our sight. The ears help us to misjudge the sound. Our tongue help us to stick to the taste. That's the reason why we kill animals for meat, for food, because we like the taste of animal blood and meat. It gives the 6th consciousness the liking, the tendency to cannot stay away from eating meat, you know, cannot stay away from killing, and all that. So our first 5 consciousnesses have been influencing us in the wrong way. But sometimes our first 5 consciousnesses could influence us to do it the right way. When you are on the right path of enlightenment, when you are on the true understanding of wisdom, your eyes help you to achieve what you want to achieve. Your ears help you to listen to Dharma talk. Your ears help you to listen to the right path of understanding. Your taste sometimes could give you the judgment that, well, why do I have to eat animal meat? I can be eating vegetables, right? And the tastes are not that different. Sometimes the taste could help you to stop killing animals. It depends. It's like a knife. You can use a knife to kill. You can use the knife you can utilize to do good things, to achieve what you want decently. All right, so that's deep in samadhi. The second is recall the past and postulate the future. You're independent of the first 5 consciousnesses, because you think of the future, you think of the past. You don't need the first 5 consciousnesses. You don't need eyes to think about the past. Your eyes cannot help you to think about the past. Your nose cannot help you to smell the past. Your tongue cannot help you to get back the sound that happened yesterday. All right? And also in dreaming, you don't need the first 5 consciousnesses in dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're creating all these images in your mind. That's how your mind works. If you analyze in detail, why do we have to analyze our own consciousness in the detail? We want to understand thyself so that we can solve the problems that arises in our mentality. All these mental afflictions, all these mental disturbances, all this greediness, hatred, jealousy, fraudulence, arrogance, egoism, all this depressive attitude, anger, hatred, is all created inside of us. We want to find out why. Why are we suffering? Can we get away from the suffering? That's what the Buddha taught us. Analyze the situation first. Find out the problems and then slowly resolve all these problems. Not just in blind faith of, worshiping and, burning incense and burning flowers. No. The Buddha said, try to understand. Get to the turn your polluted consciousness into pure wisdom and get into the path of enlightenment. So that's how your 6 consciousnesses arise. That's how your manager, your mano, works. That's how your mind works. So you want to watch out all these. All right, that's how that mind works. But as we said before, when we analyze each consciousness, we want to put it in certain modes of understanding. How does we know how the first 5 consciousnesses perceive external objects, perceive externalities. And we know how the first 5 consciousnesses understand or believe something, the most of knowledge. And we know how the first 5, what are the inherent moral nature of our first 5 consciousnesses. And now, how about the 6th consciousness, the manager? We've got to understand the manager's personality, right? If you want if you're the shareholders or the directors, don't you have to understand the personality and evaluate your manager? How does the mano vijnana perceive external objects? In 3 ways. The first 5 only perceive externalities. The first 5 only perceive externalities in the first way. Raw objects as perceived in actual reality. I see you. You're a raw object that I see. You are the object, the environs, the external object, that you're the raw reality that my eyes see. My eyes only can interact that way. My eyes cannot see yesterday, right? Can you? Can my eyes create an image to see? Actually, no. The image is created by your mano, not by the eyes. Unless your eyes, your organ is broken, is damaged. It's just like my camera. If my camera is a sound condition, my eyes capture what is actual raw reality that exists. My camera cannot make a decision as to what to capture. Cannot make a decision as how much light I put in, how fast is the shutter. That is determined by you. The camera is just capturing the visual object. How much light? How fast is the shutter? How do I do it? What angle is all determined by the manager. You are the manager. So the first 5 only perceive external objects in the first condition, raw reality as it is. But your 6th consciousness in you, your mind, your 6th consciousness, your thinking consciousness, other than seeing objects as perceived in reality through the 5 consciousness, also can imagine. Your 6th consciousness can imagine externalities. So objects imagined by imagination. And sometimes this imagination, because you imagine, is distorted. You can imagine that someone is yelling at you. Actually, he's not. You can imagine that your wife is jealous, but she's not. You can imagine that your in-laws are belittling you, underestimating you, blaming you, but they're not. You imagine. Sometimes you just imagined. You see how dangerous the imagination is? Illusion is? So sometimes objects you perceive through your imagination. And sometimes it's purely imagination and illusion with no substance in it. The second one is distorted. You still have a substance. You see something, you see Mr. Chen in there, and judging by Mr. Chen's appearance, you think that guy is a no good guy, an evil guy. But you still have some substance to distort, to discriminate. But in the third category, you just create it through imagination and illusion. No substance. You understand? See the difference? The Chinese word would give you the difference. 带直境 carry a little bit of substance in. 独影境 no substance at all. You just create the imagination and illusion. You ponder on it. You make troubles out of it. You were driving, and this next guy were driving too, and he was looking at you, and you thought that he's disdaining you, and you yelled at him. That could be out of imagination illusion. Because you think that that guy is doing that. Maybe he is. If he is, then your imagination, your postulation is correct. Your inference is correct. If he isn't, your inference becomes a fallacy. And many things happen that way in real life, you know. That's how we get into trouble. All right, so the perceived object, as far as externality is concerned, the sixth consciousness is extremely powerful because it involves with three kinds, all the comprehensive externalities. The sixth consciousness is involved with it. How about the modes of knowledge? How does the sixth consciousness get to believe things, get to understand things? How do you believe in something? How does your manager believe in something, understand something? Through four ways. Through direct perception, simultaneously with the first five consciousnesses. Through inference, postulations, assumed premises, logical consequences of reasoning. And then, if this inference is wrong, it becomes a fallacy. It could be wrong, it could be right. If it is right, it's inference. If it is wrong, it's not an inference anymore, it's just a fallacy. In most of these cases, it falls into fallacious inference, fallacious reasoning. That's how we get into trouble. That's why we fight, we quarrel, we become so mad, we become so selfish, so egoistic, because we think that that's what the world looks at us. That's how other individuals look at us. And sometimes that's how we look at ourselves. So those are the three modes of knowledge, getting to know. And then the fourth is knowledge from saints. Your manager believes in also knowing, believes something from trustworthy sources, from saints, from mom and dad, from your granddad, from all these teachers, that they are really giving you the knowledge. You know, you understand, you believe, because your most respectable teacher told you. Your most respectable teacher told you that you have to be courteous, you have to be polite, you cannot be selfish. When you go to a park, don't just pick any flowers you want. When you go to a forest, don't chop any wood, anything you want, because your respectable teacher told you that's the right thing to do, and you believe it, you understand it, you follow it. That's how your sixth consciousness works. And also maybe in your religion, Jesus told you to believe in that, or Allah told you to believe in that, or the Buddha told you to believe in that, and you believe it, or Confucius, or Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu told you, these are the values of humanity. The values of humanity sometimes can be seen in humbleness, not in arrogance. And you believe, oh yeah, I believe in Lao Tzu. The value of the human value can only be evaluated with a humble attitude, not with an arrogant attitude. You believe in it, so there's knowledge from saints. And the first five consciousnesses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the body, can only do a direct understanding, a direct perception. The eyes cannot infer. The eyes cannot make mistakes. Only the mind makes mistakes. The eye only captures the image. How can the eyes make mistakes? Don't blame the eyes. The eyes are only tools. It's the manager inside of you that's the culprit. You got to watch it. Your sixth consciousness, you got to watch it. Why are people committing crime? They allow the sixth consciousness to do what it wants. The sixth consciousness wants to please itself by killing, please itself by lying, slandering, please itself by doing anything it wants. Then you get into trouble because your sixth consciousness is not under control. Why is it not under control? You haven't been training it. You're not going for meditation. You don't care about how your mind gets out of control. So, in your sixth consciousness, It all falls into this four modes of knowledge. Sometimes if you understand psychology, this is Buddhist psychology. It also happens in modern psychology. But you know the difference between the Buddhist psychology and the modern psychology? There's a major difference. Modern psychology only deals more with the present. The time dimension is just of the present. But the Buddhist psychology deals with the past, not just of yesterday, of previous lives. It transcends time dimension to go into previous 1 life, 2 life, 3 life, 4 lives ago. And there's one major difference also. Modern psychology deals with humanity, but the Buddhist psychology deals with saints, with saints beyond temporal world, with how to get out from humanity. It transcends humanity, not just of humanity. Transcends samsara, transcends reincarnations, transcends mental afflictions. It transcends the urge for reputation, wealth, fame, luxuries, and all that. So you see the difference? That being said, we're not despising modern psychology. It's a very resourceful understanding of humanity. It's part of the Buddhist teaching. It's highly respectable. It's very important. So one should not, so if you are taking university courses, if you have some elective that you have to do, I always suggest to students that take psychology and philosophy, if that's an elective that you have to do to contribute your credits. Don't take every course in physics, in chemistry, you know, all this is science. Learn something about non-science. Your psychology, philosophy, social work, sociology, all that is related to the Buddhist teaching. So we know that the sixth consciousness, very comprehensive. It covers all the four modes of knowledge. Knowing that also is very interesting. If someone says, who do you believe in? I believe in the Buddha. Have you seen Buddha before? No, I haven't seen. How come you believe in something you haven't seen before? He may say, you only believe in things that you see, you listen to, you feel, your sensory organs can sense. That is science. How can you believe in something that's out of the senses? Can you get an answer from there? Because the way of believing in something is not just in direct perception. You only believe in things you see, you only believe in things you listen. Then there's so many things that you cannot see, you cannot listen, you cannot taste. You mean they don't exist? You also believe in things through inference and knowledge from saints. Because our seeing, our listening ability, human ability of listening and seeing, are not even better than some animals, as I always mention. A dog can listen to sound 5 miles away or 2 miles away. Can you? An eagle can see a grain of rice 1 mile away. A whale can listen to get the sound of his companion miles away under the ocean. Can you? So don't just believe in your actual perception. Our actual perception are very limited. So don't say, I only believe in things I actually see. That's not logical at all. That's not a logical premise. You haven't seen your great-grandfather, have you? With your eyeballs. You have not seen your great-grandfather except at a picture, a photo that your dad told you. You haven't seen the raw reality of the person of your great-grandfather, but you do believe he existed before. You see what I mean? All right, this the most of understanding. Next, the moral nature. What is the moral nature of the first five? The first five consciousnesses contain wholesome, unwholesome, and indeterminate. The six also wholesome, unwholesome, and indeterminate. What does that mean? Does that mean that your manager is always doing bad things? Your manager inside? Are you always doing bad things? Bad conduct? No. Sometimes you're a great guy. Some evil guys, sometimes they're doing great things too. Because you have that nature in you to be wholesome. It's not just you are dominated by nothing, you're only dominated by unwholesome speech, behavior, and act. No. You also have that wholesome seed in you. It's just you haven't cultivated more. You didn't fertilize it. You didn't allow it to grow. You only allow your unwholesome seeds to grow. That's why you lie, you steal, you commit sexual misconduct, you're doing all these unwholesome acts because you only allow them to flourish. Regarding your wholesome deeds, you haven't flourished them. You just allow them to be latent under the soil. The Buddha said, let your wholesome deed flourish, to give, not just receive, for example. Have you made it an agenda in your calendar that you want to make your wholesome deeds, wholesome speech to flourish? Not necessarily. You only think about what you want to achieve. I want to have in my next year, I'm going to make so much money that I want to do this. I'm going to have a girlfriend. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Everything is egoistic bias. And sometimes you may add, I don't care how I do it, as long as I can achieve that goal. I can do it by all means. I can cheat. I can sign false contract. I can do anything I want as long as I get that objective. Then you're not flourishing wholesome deeds. You're cultivating unwholesome behavior, seeds of unwholesome behavior in your mind. If you're always dominated by unwholesome tendency, it's going to be a very unhappy, full of suffering life. A life in which you will realize retribution right in this life. Going to jail, broken families, fighting, abusing, criminal offenses. That's how people have gone through. We should reflect on it. Wholesome, unwholesome, and indeterminate. The moral nature of humanity. Why do we have to care about moral nature? Some people argue. What is wrong in one society is acceptable in another society. Why do I have to care about moral nature? Some people argue with that. As long as I can get what I want, why do I have to care about the moral nature? You think about it. It may not be obvious to some people. In some ancient, uncivilized tribe of some country, killing each other is okay. So why can't we, you know, if I don't like someone, why can't I get rid of him or her? You think about it. How important is moral nature, is morality? That's a subject that we should contemplate on. That's a subject that we can write papers about. Okay, so let's do a summary. I'm looking at the clock, it's almost on time. So your mano consciousness is extremely powerful. It covers all the perceived objects, all modes of knowledge, all moral nature. And how about the next, because we study every consciousness from different perspective. We study from perspective of the externalities, which is the perceived object, the modes of knowledge, and the moral nature. What is the fourth item, perspective, that we study? Where are they actively involved? The first five consciousnesses are active in where? In what realm of existence? In what realm of existence is the sixth consciousness active? Let's get on to the next slide. Remember we talked about there's three realms of existence. The first realm is the Kama Dhatu, which is the realm or the world with desires. The second one, the realm that is free of the desire of the lower realm. The most obvious one is, in this second level of existence, there's no more sexual desire in that existence. This first level of existence, the most dominant one, is the sexual desire. They also desire for fame, for reputation, for luxuries, for enjoyment. That's our realm. This is the lower realm. The lower realm contains six kinds of existence. The heavenly beings, human beings, animals, ghosts, and hell victims. There are six realms. Asuras too. 6 realms of existence in there. We are in here. We are the humans realm, which is more or less in the middle. The 3 vicious realms are hell victims. They're always suffering in hell. Ghosts, the spirits we call it, the ghosts. And that is animals. Animals' existence. And then the 3 higher realms are the heavenly beings, the asuras, and the human beings. When we study the first 5 consciousnesses, we said the first 5 consciousnesses are involved only with the first and the second realm. But in the first ground, all first 5 functions. In other words, your eyes, your nose, your ear, your tongue, your body, all function. All are active. But in the second realm, which is a higher level of existence, only the nose, only the eyes, the ears, and the body functions. The nose and the tongue, they do not need them anymore. Only the lower animals need the smelling consciousness and the tasting consciousness. Because the lower kind of existence still kill each other for food. They kill animals for food, so they need the nose to taste food. They need the tongue to taste food. And also the lower level of existence, they eat by muscles, one mouth after one mouth after one mouth. They do it through the tongue and the nose. And then they swallow everything in there for the digestions. And they still need to, what? Assimilate the food and then let out the garbage as filth. So they have to go through a procedure of assimilation, getting into the food and getting the dirt, the stinky, the smelly dirt, the feces out. They have to go through that procedure. So that's the lower end of existence where you still have to input this flesh and blood in you and get out the feces. But in the high existence, they don't need that kind of food anymore. What is their food? The mentality. One of the examples is meditation is their food. They're always in tranquility, in peacefulness. They don't eat morsels. They don't need to kill animals for food. They don't need the food that we need. So if we can just give an examples, they don't need any toilets. They don't need washrooms. They don't need washrooms anymore. You know why this higher level existence, they don't want to come down to this level? If they're up there, we really stink. They don't want to come down to us, to this higher level. Because would you go to prison if you know that well, how come this low, higher end existence, they don't come down and visit us? When you get out of prison, do you still want to return to prison? You don't want to, because it's disgusting in prison. You lost your freedom. It's suffering. If you have been to hell, do you still want to go down to hell to visit those friends that you have in hell? You don't want to. So, your first 5 consciousnesses are active in here, 1 and 2, but then your 6 consciousnesses are active in all the realms, which is this, a whole thing I got highlighted for you. So the 6, the mono consciousness, your manager, your thinking consciousness, is extremely active, not only in the lower level, the higher level has it, but the higher level is the more or less purified manager, the purified 6 consciousness. Our manager is a crude, I mean, not skillful, but they're still very skillful. They're not extremely talented. But all these other, the manager that goes to the formless realm, this manager are extremely high level, not compared to our manager in this world. So they're in the formless realm, they're in the realm of no desire. They're in a very high level realm. We are in a lower level realm. So today what we have studied, we already have started the 6th consciousness, the mano, your mano. Remember that name. Why don't you call from now on, you call your internal reacting your mano. You ask yourself, is my mano working, behave really well? Is my mano really going through meditation? My mano is working inside of me. I got to watch my mano. My mano is me. That's your 6th consciousness. The Buddha has refined the 6th consciousness in such a level that is all enlightened, and we haven't. We're still involved with the lower end mano. We want to raise that level to a higher end mano, enlightenment mano, enlightened mano.